Well, good morning, everyone who's here and interested in learning about the SB 1383 implementation record. Green Education US is pleased to host this informational session as part of our mission to bring sustainable resource management professionals together for knowledge sharing and support. This webinar will include information on the implementation record requirements, as well as showcase some new solutions to help make your work in completing the record requirements easier. At today's webinar, we will hear from Karla Miller of CalRecycle, Judi Gregory of Go to Zero Strategies, and Bob Hollis of Smart Compliance. Karla Miller with CalRecycle is a section manager in the Local Assistance and Market Development branch. She has worked for CalRecycle since 2011, providing technical assistance and support to jurisdictions throughout the state. Today, she'll be sharing key information related to the implementation record. Judi Gregory is the president of Go to Zero Strategies, a Los Angeles-based solid waste and recycling consulting firm that assists local jurisdictions, haulers, and businesses with legislative compliance and program oversight. She has worked in the industry for 37 years, but began her career in second grade when she began dumpster diving for beverage containers to make some extra cash. She has previously owned a waste hauling collection firm and served on both the board and as staff to the California Recycling Association for 20 years. She is also the co-founder of Smart Compliance. Today, Judi brings her experience to bridge the gap between requirements and the real-world struggles of jurisdictions. Bob Hollis is the co-founder and CEO of Mobius Intelligent Systems, a California-based firm focused on implementing technology-based solutions to address global environmental and humanitarian challenges. Bob has served on numerous nonprofit and corporate boards of directors and as an elected public official in El Dorado, California. His clients include public agencies, municipalities, haulers, nonprofit organizations, and triple bottom line companies. Bob has led the development of the Smart 1383 software solution. As we go through today's webinar, we encourage you to post questions that you may have in the Q&A box. We will get to as many of these as possible after the presentations are complete. Because of the size of the audience, we may not be able to get into discussions related to everyone's specific issues. However, Judi and Bob are available to schedule one-on-one appointments, and their emails will be available at the end of the presentation. Karla is going to get us started with an overview of the implementation record. Over to you, Karla.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you for having me here today. I'm so happy to be able to share with you one of the new resources we created to help jurisdictions in organizing and developing their implementation record. So I figured the easiest way to do that would be to share the actual document that we created and to show you how to get there. So from our CalRecycle website, you'd want to go to our programs and click on 1383 implementation. And then we're going to scroll all the way down to record keeping. Click on learn more. And then we'll scroll down to jurisdictions and click on that learn more button. And then right in the middle here, you'll find the implementation record checklist. So I'm going to click on that and open it up. So once you open this checklist out, it has a little bit of guidance for jurisdictions on what record keeping is, what the requirements are. And then on the left-hand side, you can see a navigation bar, which will show you all the components of the checklist. So we created 3 different sections. One's a checklist for full implementation. One's a checklist for jurisdictions with rural exemptions, and one's a checklist for jurisdictions with low population waivers. So I just kind of wanted to show you really quickly how this document works. You can either use the navigation bar to get to different pieces of the list, and this list is a list of a compilation of all the record keeping requirements in one place. So within our regulations, those record keeping requirements are kind of spread throughout. So this is a list of all of them on one page. So like I said, you could use this navigation bar to get to different pieces of the record keeping requirements. So if I clicked on program descriptions, it'll take you to the program description requirements. If I clicked on edible food recovery, it will click on that. You can also use our table of contents, which will do the same thing. So you just use the control click. Say if I want to go to edible food recovery, and it should take me there to edible food recovery. If I click on control click on edible food recovery, it'll take me back to the table of contents. So we kind of tried to make this a little bit, it's a really long list. So we try to make it so that you can collapse areas if you want to, or, only see certain things. Like I can collapse the waivers and exemptions.
Karla?
Yes.
Our screen is just showing the bulleted list in the first page. It's not following your clicking into the record.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think when you open the document, you're on the share, it stayed on the website for your share screen. So you might want to reshare and share the document.
Sorry about that. Let's see. Okay. There, so let's. Okay. I think it's this time here. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone.
This is the point where I always say, isn't it amazing that we can all do this from all across the state and not have to all be together? So we appreciate everyone's patience as the technology keeps up with us.
Okay, so I'll go back to the beginning here. Let's see. So we'll go back to the front. And this is just I was telling you about the guidance. There's a little intro about what the implementation record is. We've got this left navigation bar here, which shows you all the contents of the document, including the table of contents. So like I said, you can click on the navigation bar and get to any of those pieces. If you want to just focus on education and outreach, it'll take you right there. If you click back on the education and outreach, it'll take you back to the table of contents. You can also click on the table of contents. So there's multiple ways to get to the different pieces of the document. But as you can see on the left navigation bar, everything is broken out by program area for the record. So you can, look at each piece and it'll tell you what's required to be in your record. For example, I clicked on waivers and exemptions. It shows you everything that you would need to include in your record keeping for waivers and exemptions. So this document was created because as our enforcement team was going out and conducting compliance evaluations, they were finding that the implementation records were incomplete. The files were not easily identifiable. And so it would take our team a really long time to actually complete a review of the implementation record. And thus, it would take them extra time to complete the compliance evaluation. So as the local assistance team, we decided we would try to put together something really quick and easy for jurisdictions to take a look at, in addition to the model record keeping tool that we have, so that they could quickly and easily just go from the beginning and make sure that they have all the pieces needed in their implementation record. So as a point of assistance this year, the local assistance team will be, as we visit and have conference calls with our jurisdictions, we'd like to offer assistance in reviewing the implementation record for every jurisdiction, so that jurisdictions are prepared for a compliance evaluation when the time comes. We have done a couple of reviews already with some jurisdictions. So we've tested the process and some of the results have been really positive so far. So, we quickly go through and we have been able to determine what pieces are missing for a jurisdiction, and then they're easily solvable. I do have to say that the couple of jurisdictions we've reviewed so far have used the model record keeping tool, so it's been really easy for us to follow, and they've identified their files and use names that make sense as we're going through, and it's easy to navigate their records because the records are enormous, and that's just 1 year of records, not to mention, you know, the 5 years that their records are required to be kept. So in addition to us testing this out, and once we've completed our testing, we'd like to host a chat with CalRecycle, one of our chats, I think maybe May or June, to share with jurisdictions what we found during our reviews, and, you know, provide some examples that jurisdictions may use when they're creating their implementation record. So that's kind of the plan that we have going forward from a local assistance standpoint. And we're always interested in hearing, you know, what would be most helpful to jurisdictions as we're trying to provide assistance, and what tools could be utilized moving forward to help jurisdictions complete all the requirements of 1383. So with that, I will stop sharing. And that's pretty much all I have today for the implementation record resource that we've developed.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Karla. Please feel free to post questions in the Q&A box, and we'll either respond to those in writing, or we will open them up for discussion after Judi and Bob's presentations as well.
All right. Is that my cue? Okay. So hello, everyone, and thanks for coming today. I am going to be focusing on some challenges and some solutions, hopefully to help in compiling. But before I did that, I wanted to just dive in a little bit to kind of talk about the implementation record as a whole. I think jurisdictions are very familiar with annual reporting. You know, the window opens, the window closes. It's a standard format for every jurisdiction. You know, it's expected. Lots of high-level information, a total or a checkbox, or maybe a short narrative. The implementation record is completely different. It's, as Karla, you know, referenced, it's going to be a very large document, and it doesn't follow a standard format. But there are some things that are sort of the crucial to the development of it, just sort of the basic information. So first of all, it's a one central location, physical or electronic. And I think central is really important because when you get that request for it, it's not going to be 50 emails to CalRecycle with a bunch of documentation. It needs to be compiled in a way that's centralized so that CalRecycle can access it and find all the documents, hopefully well organized. I think Karla alluded to the fact that sometimes it's hard to find that information. So important. The timing of it, 10 business days from request. So basically 2 weeks. So jurisdictions shouldn't be starting to develop or put together their implementation record when that window opens like we're used to. Rather, it's something that realistically, at this point, we should probably already have 2 years worth of documentation compiled within it. There's no way a jurisdiction is going to pull together an implementation record in 10 days. So please don't do that. And then with that goes along with that is it's sort of like a living document. Within 60 days of an action, an activity, a record information, that information should be in your implementation record. So it's not once a year a window opens and you update it. It's as the information's coming in, you're maintaining it so that it's always current. And then 5 years worth of records, which will probably be a lot, and that it's subject to the Public Records Act. So just some basic information about it. So I'm going to be talking about some of the biggest challenges And so with that, there's really at this point not a lot of level of understanding or expectation. Unlike the annual report where everybody's doing the same thing at the same time, this is very independent. It's very unique to every jurisdiction. You have the ability to organize it how you want, as long as it contains the proper level of information and meets those guidelines. So you don't have standard forms, you don't have standardized documents that you're using. I do happen to work with one of the cities that got one of those first requests. And so this entire process has been a learning process for those of us that are consultants, the haulers, the cities, CalRecycle. And so what we're going to be sharing are just some of those challenges and what are some ways that you can work around with the solutions that you have. So I'm going to be covering, how to organize, how to overcome the challenges of compiling data from multiple stakeholders, and to the extent that it's possible, simplifying that process and helping to keep everything organized. So before I jump in, just going back, again, 10 days is not enough. Hopefully after this webinar, you're going to walk away with some great ideas and, start working on that IR. I know that a lot of cities have been waiting for more assistance, so hopefully this will provide some of that. But important, the document needs to be comprehensive. So what Karla had showed you is a quite substantial document, because there's a lot of data points. And so need to make sure that it's not just an overview. We're not just providing a total of something. We're providing all the detailed records, the photos, the data, the reports, the written program descriptions of how we're going to do this. And basically our implementation record should reflect the full extent of all the programs and activities that are taking place. Who's doing what? When are they doing it? How are they record keeping it? How are we doing notices of violation and curing that and doing follow-up and education and outreach? So this was a video actually of the document that Karla referred to, the Excel file that was created. And that's a great guidance document. Basically, each tab has information on how you can compile records, what the minimum requirements are, how to find the regulations. So if you haven't looked at that, I strongly recommend you download it, because just as a reminder, there's a lot of sections that need to be covered as part of the implementation record keeping. And so you're going to want to make sure you have a good solid way to organize it. So whether you utilize the checklist, which Karla just showed with you, or you use the Excel form that she provided, or I'm going to share with you what one of the documents that I used. Organization is going to be your best friend in this process. It really is such a large amount of information that having a way to not only organize it, find things quickly, and kind of at a glance know where you are is going to be important. So one document that I created, the city that I was in, we were not utilizing a paid solution. So we had basically started from scratch. And so I basically utilized CalRecycle's Excel template to create a different version where I could see it all on one page, and where I had a little bit more ability to adjust it to some of the things that I wanted to do. This document is available. Anybody on the call that would like a copy of it, just email me and I'm happy to share this with you and you can use it for your own purposes. There's only one page of it, but basically each of those different sections that are required to be tracked has its own header. So this is the enforcement mechanism, the program descriptions, and it goes down. It's about 5 pages long. It is a Google sheet. So if you open it in an Excel, it will open, but you're going to lose some of the functionality. I find that the check boxes don't carry over, and sometimes the formulas don't carry over. So if you can, I'm a Google person. If you can use Google to open it in Google Sheets, you'll find that it's a lot more sort of fun to play with. But what this does is this takes each of the components, the required pieces of information that need to be kept in your IR, line by line. And then we've got a column for the progress. So either we haven't started it, maybe we're in progress, possibly completed it, or in some cases, it just doesn't apply to your jurisdiction at all. So you're able to click and unclick those boxes. And then we've got the regulations here so that it's easy to find in case you need to look up more detail. And you can always hide that column if you don't want to look at it. Once we put something in the IR, we can check a box so that we know it's there. And then this column is really important. This column, in our case, we're using a shared folder system. So options would include, I strongly recommend you use either a paid application or a shared folder system versus lots of, independent folders that aren't organized under an umbrella. And I'm going to show you my folder organization in a few minutes. But then this location is to the primary, either the document, if it's just a single document, or to the folder. And the great thing about using a shared folder system is that you can link not to just independent documents to folders. So this is the primary folder. So in the case of most of these, they're independent documents. In other places, it might be linking over to the folder that contains that information. And then I have a column for who it's assigned to. So we know the person that's basically primarily responsible for compiling that information, not necessarily putting it into the IR, but for compiling it. And the last thing is I create this color coding over here has some formulas in it. And so what it does is if something's complete, it's green and it shows the date that it was last updated in there. I have formulas in some of the boxes. So the red means it hasn't even been put in the IR at all. And this is just a sample, so it doesn't necessarily match because you can see there's a link there. But then I've got formulas that when I put a date in here, once that date gets beyond 60 days, it turns it orange. Only in some cases, because some things don't update frequently, like maybe your ordinances don't update all the time. So I just mark those as green, they're complete, that document's done. But other things like maybe waiver assessments or route reviews or notices of violation, procurement, I have a formula in here that if records haven't been updated within 60 days, it turns it orange. And that's a flag to me to know that documentation in there might be outdated and need to be updated. So this is the way that I use this. I use this as a master document and it serves a lot of purposes. And I'm going to share with you why when we talk about what it takes in terms of people to maintain an IR. So it really is that village concept. It's going to take a lot of people to really pull together all of this information. It's not a one-man show, but you're going to have a lot of stakeholders. So you're probably going to have at least one hauler or multiple haulers, your consultants, various city departments, right? Edible food generators, tier 1s, tier 2s, food recovery organizations, possibly facilities. Information is going to be coming from so many places that it's not just a matter of organizing the information, but it's really organizing the stakeholders and the people. So it's one thing to have great organization, but we also want to have tools that allow all these stakeholders to provide that information in a way that's going to be convenient to you or whoever is going to be compiling the IR. This is where your written program descriptions should provide that information. I think Karla alluded to the fact that, during these initial 25 cities, a lot of information was missing. Your written program descriptions, we're not going to really go into that in this webinar. Super, super important, the who, what, why, and where. But the who is important, all those details of who has responsibility on what piece of information. So there needs to be a process, and those involved need to know what that process is. So if your city purchasing department is compiling the paper procurement records, who are they sending them to? How often are they sending them? What's that process for making sure those records not only get compiled, but they get into your implementation record? As the person that's responsible for maintaining the IR, one thing is that you are not going to want to have to go in and look through dozens and dozens of folders and documents to see when somebody last updated a record, which is why going back to that master document, you are going to want to have something that people can update to reflect that. So you, as maybe the person reviewing it, can see at a high level where those documents might be outdated without having to go through that process of looking through all of the details of it. So here's where you would want to use things like permissions and access in folders to make sure that the right people have access to that. And another thing, I went ahead on my slide, sorry, is using calendars. I think a very, very useful tool for something like SB 1383 is to create a specific calendar, whether it be through Microsoft or Google, that's an SB 1383 calendar, and you invite all of your team members that are helping compile this information and put all of the due dates, put reminders, put specific things that need to be done and when. Maybe you do route reviews only once a year. So, make sure that's on there on your calendar and when the information needs to be posted to your IR. So utilize those organizational tools that are widely available and used to help with your organization. And then in terms of the documents themselves, this is where I want to spend a little bit of time, is, that whole ease of compiling various records. I don't know that there is an easy way to do it, but there's easier ways to do it. So we're going to talk about some of the easier ways to do it, especially when you're dealing with so many different pieces of information, data, photos, URLs, social media. How do you do that in an easy mechanism? So, capturing photos it's not hard to capture photos. It's not hard to capture the information. The challenge isn't getting the information, it's then organizing it. And maybe it's not even hard to organize it, but it's very time consuming. So what we're talking about is trying to come up with simple mechanisms that not only help, but that help save time. So one of those is file naming conventions. Really important to come up with standardized file naming conventions that everybody utilizes. You'll see in the next slide that I like to use numbers and letters. That way I can organize folders and see things, whatever works for you, but make sure that it's part of your record keeping, that you share that with other people so that you're not having to go in and change file names. Another thing that I love to use is mapping tools along with survey tools at the same time. So I don't typically use this in larger cities, but sometimes in a smaller city, we can have really good effect with the mapping and survey tools. So we can use maps to plot different colors and different pieces of information based on the color. We can sort it by zones, by auditors, by what activities need to take place. And then you can even change colors so that they flip the color to show status updates. The other thing about it is that depending on the data set you load, and this is my maps from Google. If you haven't tried them, try them, or something similar to that. We'll flip lids. So red means it hasn't been completed. Green means that it's been completed. Gray means it's attempted but not successful. So you can visualize and see activities on your maps. The other thing you can do is, if you use them in tandem with surveys, you can actually have the survey link embedded in the dot. So you click on the dot, like you click on it, it opens up a window, and you could actually have your Google survey link right here. So your auditor clicks on it. Using Google surveys or a survey tool is a great way to capture some of the data. So maybe you're doing route reviews or waiver assessments or right sizing assessment, to capture data that's going to go right into a spreadsheet. It saves you a ton of time from having to transfer that information into a spreadsheet later. The other great thing about it is that you can do conditional logic with it. So you can set up, if it's contaminated, another window pops up, otherwise it doesn't pop up. So it makes it easier. And the thing I like about it is that photos are linked as URLs. So it creates a photo, but it creates a URL on the spreadsheet. So your spreadsheet of data makes it really easy to incorporate your photos without having to go find the photo, get a link to it, paste the link in, or link over to the folder with the photos and name them. So lots of really cool things you can do when you utilize something like this. And I have an example of, so this is how the spreadsheet data would come through. And you could see this is one photo that if I were in Google, I could hover over that and the photo would actually pop up and I would see it. One tip is that if you're going to have multiple photos, make multiple questions on your survey, because if you notice the ones above it aren't hyperlinked, because when you do multiple photos, you lose that hyperlink. You have to copy and paste each URL. They're kind of sandwiched together. So if you want 5 photos, put 5 questions versus one question that allows 5 photos, and it makes it a lot simpler on your data collection. In regards to your spreadsheets, use them dynamically, use conditional formatting, use color coding. Whenever possible, I like to use URLs. Like this Google photo that's in here on a URL. If you post outreach material on a website, grab the URL. If you have a social media post, grab the URL. The reason being that these URLs will link right over to that versus trying to copy, paste, save another document, link another document. And a cool thing about it is that if that information updates, so a good example would be your city municipal code. If you've got your SB1383 section on notices of violation, go to that website, copy that specific URL, put that in a spreadsheet that's got all of your enforcement mechanisms. And then if the city updates its municipal code, the link will now link to the new municipal code. One drawback to that I do want to point out is that if you link to, say, like your annual SB 1383 outreach file, what will happen is if you go and just replace that file, it'll still link over to the current file, but you'll lose that historical documentation, which you are required to keep 5 years. So just wanted to remind you of that there's some really neat ways to use URLs in spreadsheets, but there's also some drawbacks to it. So keep that in mind. The last thing I wanted to show you before Bob is just a little bit of the organization I talked about. Naming all your folders. CalRecycle wants to come in here and find this information in an organized fashion, and I'm sure you want it that way as well. So I'm going to highlight 2 things. One is the 0 implementation record. Is that spreadsheet that I showed you. It's my index. It's my master document that's pointing to all of these folders or documents within the folder. So I have that in the primary folder. So this is my SB 1383 compliance folder. This is an important one. Have this catch-all folder. This is my organized folder. If I don't want other people going in and trying to organize because I'm worried that they're not going to organize correctly, give them access to a catch-all folder where they can put stuff in there. Or maybe it's just a place where, as you're getting emails from your haulers and your consultants with documents, you don't have time to deal with it and you don't want to go back to your email to try and find it. Put that stuff in the organized folder, and that stuff hasn't been reviewed yet. Gives you time to go look at it, make sure it's what you want, make sure it's good to go before you put it in your IR. And then you put it into the right folder. And within the folder, you can have subfolders. Make sure you've got good naming strategies on your documents. Within a folder, we've got completed waivers, forms and folders. Within that folder is every site we visited. And within each of those is the actual exemption form and the photos. So over-organize, spend the time up front to get organized and to figure out who's doing what and have your strategy so that as you really get going in this, you don't get lost. You don't trip up over yourself. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Bob.
Thanks, Judi. Just another quick reminder as Bob's getting his presentation uploaded to go ahead and put any questions that you have in the Q&A box. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill, and Karla and Judi. Thank you so much for those informative presentations. I don't think I can top that, but I hope to keep all your attention and that nobody will be drowsing off out there. There's certainly a lot of information here, and we can't nearly get close to covering all of it. So as Judi said, feel free to contact her, and I believe Karla is open to that as well. And of course, me, if there's anything else we can help you with after the webinar, if we don't get to it in Q&A. When Judi and I started working together on this concept, she was using all the systems that she just showed you, and they can work for you. But what we wanted to do was try to take everything she was trying to do with Google Docs, Sheets, surveys, and maps and build it into a comprehensive and efficient system that wasn't relying on Google. So a good information system considers hardware, software, people, processes, and data. So we took that approach from all of our stakeholders to see how we could build a system that really worked for people. So it needs to be easy to use, efficient, serve the needs of all the stakeholders and system users. And those stakeholders might include people who need accommodations. So of course, we designed everything with Section 508 accessibility requirements in mind. So overall, for an efficient system, if data is entered anywhere from an authorized source, the data needs to be processed and available in real time for anybody who needs it. So what we're going to look at today is a part of the system, and that is, there we go. One, we talk about data chaos. And so if you have something going on that looks like this, it leads to data overload, inefficiency, lost time, and errors. And that's what this system is designed to avoid. So we're going to look at complaint investigations, enforceable mechanisms, and written program descriptions from an organization standpoint. Then when we talk about storage, we'll look at education and outreach and recovered organic procurement, which is a big one. And then I'm going to show you a little bit about the route reviews and waivers process. And then we've got an access portal that's just for CalRecycle. So when Karla mentioned having records that are organized and easy for them to go through, you'll see how that's exactly what we strive to achieve here. And I'll go through that in more detail when we get to that section of the portal. So with that, I'm going to show you what we're talking about. So this is the Smart 1383 system. We're starting here with an example of complaint investigations. And this is just our demo portal. So none of the data you see in here is real. A lot of it's not complete. We sometimes, enter things during a demo and then delete it all after the demo. And so this is not an actual living system for a real city or with real data. So keep that in mind as you see it. And that's also why we have a couple options up here. So in addition to all of the tools we offer as part of our full system, we have implementation records as a standalone feature. So many people have been keeping records, but on other types of documents or stored in PDFs or any other format and over the years, but they don't really need or want our full system right now. People could come in and use this just as standalone. And that includes forms such as what you're seeing here, where you can add a record, and that would take you down here to this form. And rather than needing to remember all of the things that need to be included in a complaint investigation record, we build all that into the system. So using CalRecycle's guides for everything that we did from the beginning, we went through and looked at everything CalRecycle was asking for and built it into the system. So you could just follow it along very intuitively, put in all the information that's asked for, and then upload your existing records. And once those records are uploaded, then they go into the system and would show in a table here. If you're a jurisdiction administrator, you can then come in and click enable inline edit. And suppose the record was incomplete or there was additional information that needed to be added, you could come in here and just update that in real time. You can upload a file, put in the violation description, and then any additional fields that are too wide to show on your screen, you just click this little drop down, and this shows all of the other fields that are requested. So you can see here, I won't go through all of them, but these all come directly from CalRecycle. And then, of course, these records are available to be exported in a CSV format, Excel, PDF printed. And if there's just a few things you want to see, you can click this columns feature and excuse those, the white on white there. We were working on a redesign recently, and those will be fixed soon. They won't show that way in a regular portal. But you can hide anything you don't need to see. So if you just wanted to see a few things and clear up your screen, then you can do that with any table and show just the records that you want to see. For enforceable mechanisms, here's another example where you can come in and add anything that you need to have in there. And this is an example of the types of documents that you should upload, whether they're ordinances, franchise agreements, designee contracts representing the city related to SB 1383 activities, anything else that you need in here. And the tables all work the same way in terms of being able to show columns, different numbers of entries, toggle the inline edit to clean anything up in here that needs to be corrected. You can delete entries if needed for some reason. And down here, you can add your enforceable mechanisms. So you've got the requirement covered, and some might cover more than one. So you can select those, the type of mechanism, and then, of course, all of the other details that are being asked for there. Written program descriptions is another one where organization is key, and having CalRecycle be able to find all of these things very easy is critical. So you can see examples here of the different types of files that we've uploaded. And if you come down here when you're adding it to the form, this is the type of program. So it basically keeps a checklist here for you so you know what you've uploaded and what you haven't just by looking at your table and looking at this list. So you can keep working to get everything that you need to have up there. And again, it's just a similar type of system where you can put in the details, select your files, save the record. And you can use a lot of different types of file formats, and this is also unlimited. So if somebody had some odd format that they needed to include, then the system can be designed to do that as well. And then your records come into here, and they also will show in the CalRecycle portal that we'll get to in a minute or two. Education and outreach, the same type of thing. And one of the things that Judi mentioned was being able to click and link a file. If I don't want to open Facebook right now, but if I were to click this, it would go directly to the actual post that was made by, well, a city. I can see by the link underneath it. So this data, this will go straight to the file. So when you have your information in here, there's a link to the file. You can add notes. Again, toggle inline if you want to add notes later. It's right there. And one of the things that can also be built into the system for people who might want to use it for even more efficiency is Facebook, for example, has an API where you can pull all of the data in from all your Facebook posts from a specific date range. And we can pull that data into our data table and then present that data any way that we'd like to. So here are the different education and outreach types, who it was distributed to, number of recipients. And again, this all just follows the CalRecycle model. So we didn't reinvent the wheel. We went with exactly what CalRecycle said they're looking for and tried to follow that very precisely. Here we've got recovered organics procurement. So you can come in and add records for the different years. It automatically calculates the procured tons and the conversion. Shows what the target is, percent of target, gives you totals for those that are ongoing. And one of the neat things about this is we can create, excuse me, unlimited user roles with limited permissions. So if you had people in different departments that are making purchases, they could be provided with a login or access to just the procurement page where they could come in and enter their records. So again, when we talk about efficiency, if data is collected at any one point anywhere in a system, it should be available to anybody who needs it without them all having to personally one-on-one share information back and forth. So if you have somebody in a procurement role in one of your departments that could come in and enter information right here, they don't have to then send that to you to enter here. And so we can get everybody working together, doing just their little part, and together create this comprehensive system that provides everything that everybody needs. So you can also, some people, might have records that have been stored over the years, and others are creating new records. So if you already have everything on a sheet or document, you click that option, and then you can come down and just upload your records. If you want to enter information directly to create a record, then this is where you would do that. And as you can see, you can, choose what you want, then it'll automatically convert to tons, and you put in all the other information requested by CalRecycle, and then that goes into your data tables. Route reviews. So route reviews are another example of where you're collecting data at one point that you really want to share and utilize throughout the system. So what you're seeing here as I talk is somebody out doing a route review. They're collecting the information on a mobile device, and we're using a small tablet here, but you can use anything really. The software is agnostic in terms of platform. It'll work on Mac device. It'll work on Android devices, Windows devices, anything that we've seen out there in the field. It'll even work with Linux. So you can see our field auditor is out there collecting the information, tagging the location, putting it in, and then immediately she can generate a label that can go right on the bin. Or if you have hangers that you like to use instead, it can go right on the hanger. And they are also translated into different languages. So for example, we had a native Chinese speaker translate all this information so that when appropriate, we could provide it in different languages. Going out and doing a route review results in a beautiful map like this. So again, this isn't a complete system. We just have, or a complete data set. We just have a few points in here for our demos. But if someone were to come in as an auditor, they can click right here. They can go into the survey. We can do color changes and map out areas. And if we're doing commercial, for example, and somebody's scheduled to go do something that day, they're here. When they look at their map, we can have dots of different colors showing any business within a mile that might be due within 3 months or something like that. And so it makes it very efficient for our people out in the field. As they're collecting this information on the device I just showed you, it's instantly coming in, and within a few minutes, all of this is updated in real time. So if you were to even get a call from a resident saying, hey, somebody was just going through my trash, you could certify, oh yes, I see that they went through at this time, and you're seeing it in that kind of real time where you know everything going on. And then from this data that's collected, we do full analytics. So you can see all the contamination information. You can select date range, commercial, residential, status, the hauler, the route number. Then you can filter on any of these variables or any other variable that you might need for your jurisdiction. It shows our general container information. You can see what our contaminant percentages were. And this is for recycling contamination count. And of course, it also includes trash and organics. So and again, this is a demo site, so we don't have all this fully populated, but that's how the system works. And then you also have access to your data. And this data can be, again, downloaded. You can hide or show columns. You can download it as an Excel or a CSV file or print PDFs. So you can show or not show different columns. You can sort. You can find everything that you need right here for all of the data that might be of interest for any reason. Then looking quickly at our generator manager, this is where we're tracking all of our generators. And if you click into any one of these generators, you'll see all the information related to that generator. And as information is updated, say, for example, service levels, that changes everything throughout the system. And another advantage of being able to create custom user roles and permissions is that we can now let haulers into just their accounts. So if you have a hauler that changes a service level for a resident, they can log in and update it right here in the system as they go. That might seem like a burden to them because then they have to log in on their system to update it, and then they log in on our system. But it's a lot more efficient than them having to send an update report once a quarter that we then import. because if you're doing that, your information is only up to date right after that import. Within a couple of days, it can change again. But your system's not up to date. So we like to keep it live in real time. And a couple haulers have talked to us about creating APIs where when they upload it into their system or change their system, it would just go into a separate secure data lake, and then we pull that information out programmatically. And so then they only have to log in on one system to do it. And our system updates immediately or overnight whenever we run that script. But this makes it even more efficient for any hauler that might be interested in doing that. We also, of course, have our waivers process. So if you're using the generator manager, changes or information from the audits goes into the waiver processing system. So you can see all of the different information related to that, whether or not it's approved or denied or not has no status at all at this point. You can also, again, hide and we can add that tool here, hide or show any columns that you want to, and export the information if you need to use it for anything. So there's AB 1826, 1383 recycling, and 1383 organics, and it creates the you can create the PDFs right from here. And also this stores everything that's coming out of the system or going into the system. So if for example, those photos that we're taking out at businesses, those go into the generator manager. Whenever there's an audit, we're collecting photos of that audit, and those are tied in, on the route review. And then I didn't mention, but we also can do waste evaluations and pull all that information in. And then the last page that I'm going to show, but I think one of the coolest, is the CalRecycle access. So CalRecycle can have a login that gives them just access to just this page. And again, they only need to see the information that they want to see and need to see to stay in compliance. And so they don't need all of the details. They need what we need to meet these specific codes. So if they go into complaint investigations, this is what CalRecycle would see. And they can, again, hide or show columns, they can print, they can download, but this is only information that has come into the system and then been vetted and approved by system administrators on the jurisdiction side. And so as long as the system is working the way it's supposed to, and everybody's staying functional and collaborating and entering their information, these are up to date in real time. When CalRecycle calls and says you have 10 days to provide us this information, your response can be, well, I could give it to you in 10 minutes. Here's your login information. And it's there all the time and always up to date. And again, organized exactly how CalRecycle would want to see it. So we have records coming from the generator manager. So if somebody has the full system and that information is anywhere in our database, that all self-populates. This is information that I showed you a few minutes ago that would just be from files that were uploaded directly. So this is an example of a complaint file that might be uploaded by somebody who's not using the generator manager. And then you've got all the rest of the areas we're supposed to cover that, all basically work the same way. So you've got tables in here for everything that CalRecycle needs. So when CalRecycle logs in, they can come in and see everything that they want. And I should add that the development we're doing with the ear is also, there's not a way that we can put that data directly into CalRecycle's system. So we're building a system for the electronic annual report where all you have to do is go into that system, on our portal, any place that information exists, it'll pre-populate. Where it doesn't, you can enter the information that's being requested. And then that follows the exact format of the CalRecycle online process. So we'll have basically a report ready for you where you can just go line by line and everything you need is right there for you to copy and paste in. And then, as Karla mentioned, there may be some times when CalRecycle comes in and is ready to help look at some of your records and help you prepare for a full review or full compliance review. And so in that case, CalRecycle can come in and leave a note. So if CalRecycle wants to add a note, they put the name of the person who came in as the auditor, and it might be one login that several people are using because auditors might change or might cover different different topics. But in any case, when CalRecycle logs in, they have this option. So whoever's here from CalRecycle can put their name in, add their email, notes, and then select what the notes apply to. Click add to the notes log. And then as soon as they do, then that would show up here. And the jurisdiction can come in and look at this anytime. The person in the jurisdiction who oversees this area could also get a notification by email as soon as this form is completed. So somebody gets a heads up. It says, hey, somebody from CalRecycle was in, they were looking at our education and outreach and made this comment. So you can then respond to that and be prepared for the next time CalRecycle comes around. And I'll bring that to conclusion and toss it back to Jill for any Q&A.
Wow, fantastic. That's amazing. Judi, I do have a question for you, having worked through multiple type systems. What's your estimate as far as the time savings going from the Google Docs system to the Smart Compliance program?
Well, let me talk about just time savings in terms of doing things even outside of Smart, just in general. If you're using like a collection tool, a Smart tool or a Google tool, you're going to save 2/3 to 3/4 of your time. We find that if we do things paper, and then try and transpose them, it's 2 to 3 hours of administrative time per hour of field time. And that's your time downloading, uploading, file naming, having somebody review that documentation. So when you're using electronic tools in general, you're saving a huge amount of administrative time because you're already just at the review point. So that's super important regardless of which tools you're using. Having moved over to the Smart system, we found that there's definitely more administrative time saving because there are limitations associated with some of like the shared tools. Especially being that even though they're shared tools, you're not always working everything at the same time. So like the maps and the surveys are even though they're shared, they're still separate and you're working on your own devices. So you're not necessarily seeing what others are doing. So there's some challenges with that. The other thing is the organization. Just making sure that, when you're working on Google Docs, you don't have that organization tool that you have like in the Smart system where everything's organized in order. So I'll stop there in case there's more questions.
Great. I don't see any more in the Q&A box, but we do have about 2 more minutes if anyone wants to post any additional questions. This session was recorded and we will be posting that out. So if you have colleagues that could benefit from the information that you'd like to share this with, we will have a recording available. Karla, if people have more specific questions for CalRecycle, what's the next opportunity for them to get those questions answered?
Well, if they know their local assistance representative, they can always reach out to those people. Otherwise, you can reach out to me, and my email is karla@calrecycle.ca.gov.
Great.
You know what? Jill, do you want me to share the last slide really quick with the
That would be
contact
great.
information? Sorry about that. I was supposed to be ready to do that. Sorry.
And I believe there was a CalRecycle chat
Here.
coming up that we wanted to make sure people knew about.
We don't have a date yet. We're targeting either May or June, but we will send a message out to interested parties when we know the date.
Great. Fantastic. Well, excellent. Thank you so much. I know I learn something new every time we discuss SB 1383, and in this case, the implementation record. So please, as there's further questions, feel free to reach out. We do have one last question. We did have one just come in right under the wire here. Wesley Dunn is asking, can we get more information for generators that are tribal lands, or should we contact our county for that? I think that's probably for you, Karla. Oh, you're muted.
If you put your contact information into the chat or the Q&A, I will follow up with you.
Great. Excellent. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been super informative. Thanks, Judi, Karla, and Bob for joining us today. And with that, we'll let everybody get back to their afternoons. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.